Good evening, everyone. We thought we would start with a few minutes of meditation to give folks a chance to arrive. We're coming from different traditions, so whatever your practice is, you can do that for a few minutes. And with the exception of the person who's driving, he should probably be attentive to the road. So we'll just do kind of an open sit, and then we'll get the show started.
Candia? Great. Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. And thank you once again for joining us in another episode of New Horizons in Engaged Buddhism. Tonight, it is quite interesting that someone who was reared in a tradition that has such veneration for stillness, and actually be as dynamic as the Reverend Roshi Daiken Nelson. When I was reviewing everything that he does, I said, man, this man runs a conglomerate um, with volunteers in very difficult situations, making ends meet, ends that you just don't order on Amazon, ends that you have to come across through tremendous effort as well as good fortune. And particularly in his case, by meeting the needs of others. One of the things that we hopefully will get to do tonight is not just hear about what the Reverend Daiken has done, but how we ourselves could do some of the things that we have done. Because in some ways, for many of us, the need to actually address uh, the circumstances that immigrants are going through, or the need to address the circumstances of people in America. We might have 45 million war hungry people if the SNAP program doesn't get funded and the states don't find a way to fund it. So the kinds of things that Nelson Roshi really has been doing for years are, I think, are things that we can all benefit from. So that being said, let me ask you, Roshi, how did you become a Buddhist? You're a, a young boy from Iowa. You didn't become president, but you became a Roshi.
Um, so yeah, I've always kind of been interested and curious about the spiritual world. Back in, I don't know, fifth or sixth grade, whenever we were sent out to go start looking for a job, kind of like what sort of career would interest you or something like that. And the assignment was to go interview someone who had a job that you thought you would like to do. And I went to interview my Methodist pastor because there was something about that. So kind of a dyed-in-the-wool kind of peeker through the veil. But then I went to college at a small college in the Midwest and went in as a pre-seminary major, which is kind of one of the options, religion and philosophy and other things, and wound up not, I got distracted by other things and wound up not kind of completing that. But then again, it's kind of, I entered in with that interest. Then my father passed away my senior year in college, somewhat unexpectedly, and I was raised Methodist, and the college I was going to was kind of a Lutheran-based, founded by Norwegian Lutheran pastors kind of place. Not a Bible college, but just having that be part of the culture. And so I, found myself in deep grief and turned to those traditions and didn't really find any sort of magic bullet that was going to like make it all better. And so I started looking at other traditions and started reading and went to Catholic Mass, and friends would take me to their churches. I went to Quaker Friends meetings. I went to all of these different things just to kind of, put a toe in the water and see what they were up to, and started reading a lot about different traditions. And then actually a person who's on the call, we went to the same college and we got to know each other afterwards. He had started meditating at the Iowa City Zen Center, and he said, I think you might like this. And so I went on the Wednesday night at the Unitarian Church, where a good Zen center has started. And my beginning instruction was, see that cushion over there? Sit and spin and face the wall, fold your legs and put your hands in your lap. And that was my beginning meditation instruction. Nothing about Buddhism, nothing about what to do, once the bell rings and one sits there for 40 minutes. But there was something about it that was like, huh, that was very interesting. And so I kept coming, and then was introduced to a Zen priest who came and spent some time and gave talks and kind of helped guide the practice. And so that was kind of the beginnings, and that
Mm.
was 38 years ago. And yeah, and then I went to graduate school in Iowa City and was a social worker for a number of years. And then from there, I moved to Los Angeles and I found the Zen Center of Los Angeles, which is the White Plum lineage of Maizumi Roshi.
Mhm.
And so then it was a residential center, so I moved in, and 6 months later I was on staff, and a year later I ordained, and kind of that began my roller coaster ride of being a Buddhist priest.
Buddhist. It's interesting how if one were to kind of choose a string, something that runs through, is
Mhm.
this tremendous interest in the welfare of others. And the question was to find the right vehicle for you that it really rang true to you.
Right.
And it's very interesting how what you end up doing has a lot to do with that.
Hmm.
Where was Bernie Glassman there working with Maizumi Roshi at the time? Like
So
the all-star great Zen people were working there?
I arrived in Los Angeles in 1994. Moved into the Zen Center at the beginning of May of 95. Um, I had been going on weekends and participating in meditations and services and ceremonies and things like that. But I'd never had a chance to meet Maizumi Roshi or to do interview with him or anything. So, and then he left at the beginning of May to go to Japan and never returned.
Mm.
So then his Dharmistic heir was Bernie Glassman, who became the second abbot. And for some reason, there was a reluctance on anyone else's part to go to the airport and pick him up. And so that became one of my jobs, being on staff there. And so I would go fetch him from the airport. We'd come back. We'd have to find good coffee somewhere, and we'd drive. And we just got to know each other. And so I knew that he was in Yonkers doing the Grayston work, and had started the bakery and then the Grayston Family Inn, which is the housing for folks, and then the childcare service that they did. And they also had this great Pathmaker program that helped people kind of find some traction and direction in their life, and community gardens and a variety of other things. And actually, Bernie's wife at the time, Jishu, had started this program which she called Pamsula, which was taking cast-off clothes and making things like rakasus and these samoe jackets and monk's bags and altar cloths and quilts and things like that. And I had heard about that and was very interested in that. And so then it came a point where I was leaving the Zen Center of Los Angeles, and Bernie said, I'd like you to come out to Yonkers and work with Jishu and I. So I moved to Yonkers and spent 2 years there. And
Has there been any continuity of from Greystrom? Is there anybody continuing the work, or is somebody else doing it, or?
uh, it has shifted a lot. The bakery is still around. They're still doing that. And they've developed a program called Open Hiring, which kind of gave a name to what the Zen community of New York had done, which was basically anyone who walks in the door can get a
Mhm.
job. And and then there's also been a shift. They've had some business people move into, like the president and different things, and or the executive director, and so they've actually developed a marketing program of this open hiring program, and they go and they train other people to do that. But at
Okay.
this point, they're doing the only thing I think that they're doing at this point is the bakery, and then these other programs. And that
So
just evolved because, we all left Yonkers in '97. So it's been a while.
And how and when did you start the Pamsula Zen Center?
Um, in our Zen tradition, when one is empowered as a teacher, we're kicked out of the nest and told to go forth and do what you want to do, whatever that is. Start a center, stay here, be one of the supporting teachers, and so having worked and studied and practiced with Bernie and his wife Jishu, I was interested, and I had been a social worker, and my work through high school and college was food service, and I had been Tenzo, dozens of times on retreats and, feeding 30 people, 3 meals a day for a month kind of thing. And so I was very interested in kitchen and food and all of that. And so at the beginning, I just started the meditation group. We were just doing kind of a regular meditation group a couple times a week. And then I hit upon this idea to create a nonprofit which would do the culinary training program. So we have a 12-week culinary training program for anyone. We're in the workforce development parlance, there's a phrase, barriers to employment. So folks will have, things that interrupted their work, um, uh, substance use, mental health, any number of things that can impact somebody's ability to find and keep a job. And so our primary focus is that, but it's open to anyone. So we've had folks who are, wanting to transition to a culinary job from retail or some other service. We've had folks who have been unhoused and been in the shelter system. We've had folks with some mental health and substance use issues. We've had folks in justice diversion programs. So youthful nonviolent offenders often get put into a program, and we became a referral source for that for people. We've worked with undocumented folks, and any number of folks who just want to, learn the skills and work towards
Is
a
that
job.
under the Mandala Cafe or under the Pamsula, or how are they related?
The Mandala Cafe is a program that came from the Zen Center. So this idea of having some form of engaged practice off the cushion. So we have the traditional kind of, we meet and we sit and we have liturgy and I have students and we do one-on-one interviews and we do retreats and all of those things. But both working with Bernie and Jishu, as well as before that, I was very interested in some form of, doing good and doing good for others. And so that came from the kind of foundation of the meditation.
What is the demographics of your center? Like you have two satellites, Youngstown, Iowa City, three, I'm sorry, and Westchester. These
Mhm.
are very different places.
They
Uh,
are.
your demographics must be very different, and also I imagine the way you serve the community. Even though there's hunger everywhere, I suppose that's one common ground.
Right. These are Zen affiliates, not cafe affiliates.
Yeah, but the Zen
Right.
affiliates, but the
Right.
demographic,
So right.
they
So
feed into your Mandala Cafe, do they or do they not?
they don't actually. I mean,
Okay,
there's some overlap. There are folks who have come to the Zen Center who have been volunteers for
okay.
us, but it's not like a work program of the Zen Center in the same way that the Grayston work was a work program.
Ah,
That was the work for the Zen community of New York at the time.
okay. Well,
Um,
and
so So early on, I was asked to be kind of one of the rotating teachers at the uh, White Plains Zen Center in White Plains.
Hmm.
The person who was leading that was not a teacher, and so he felt like he couldn't kind of be in charge and do things. So he had like half a dozen of us who would cycle through once a month or once every 6 weeks or so. And so I did that, and then I got to know Seth Zuiho Seagull, who's been very instrumental in helping to create this wonderful Buddhist coalition for democracy. And he and the person who was running that group studied the precepts and took refuge in the practice and received the precepts. And then a couple years after that, Seth ordained as a novice priest. And so he's been in White Plains. And then he found a group there run by a Unitarian minister who was also had years of Zen practice and was participating in that. And through kind of a series of events, that minister wound up leaving and Seth inherited the group. So that's the Palmsula Westchester sitting group. And I visit that group once every quarter, every 3 months or so, and we do a day-long retreat. And then another student of mine who also is a Unitarian minister wound up in Youngstown, Ohio, which is a town of about 65,000, and there's a state university there, but there are no Dharma centers of any kind. The closest are about an hour in a couple directions. And so he and I were continuing our studies and conversations, and one day he just said, "What do you think about doing some sort of Dharma programming here?" Because he had a church, we could use that space. And so then we just gave it a shot one weekend, and that became the Youngstown Zen Center, which has been going on for 3 years now. And I also visit that quarterly and spend a weekend there, and sometimes participate in the Sunday morning Unitarian services, and have gotten to know a lot of folks there and enjoy kind of going on. And then, though I moved out of Iowa many years ago, I remained connected with several friends. My friend Tayu, who introduced me to the center, and a couple other folks. And they had a resident teacher for, I don't know, a couple of years, 2, 3 years, and she had to step away for health reasons. And then she wound up passing away in 2022. And something in me just prompted me to reach out to my friends there and said, if I can help, let me know,
Yeah.
because I do that.
Once
And
again,
and
yeah.
that developed into a conversation with my friends, and then the then president of the board, and I was invited to do talks over Zoom. This was 2023, so this was still in parts of the pandemic, and the center itself hadn't fully opened yet. And then that developed into them inviting me to be their interim guiding teacher, and then I was installed as that, and then they dropped the interim, and so now I'm the guiding teacher, and I go and spend 10 days there every 3 months.
Hmm. Hmm. And
And
is there an engaged Buddhism aspect of all the Pamsulas?
um, there's a strong encouragement. There's not any regular programming at this point, though members from each group do participate in programs somewhere in Youngstown or in Iowa City.
Which is an interesting thing because, as you know, I mean, the majority of practitioners of Buddha Dharma in America have not done the levels of engaged Buddhism that the White Plum lineage is known for. I mean, the Bernie Glassmans, the Pamsula, the Mandala Kitchens, the
Mhm.
witnessing, Greystone. I mean,
Right.
it really is. Of course, there's Thich Nhat Hanh also,
Mhm.
but maybe it has something to do with sort of the original Bernie Glassman type of mind that you've really managed to do so many things in so many places. Um, but let's talk a little bit more about the cafes.
Sure.
Where do you get your volunteers?
Um, a variety of places. I'm on several volunteer websites, so folks come through that. There's a program with the city that tries to help people find volunteer opportunities. Um, the first people who started came from the Sai Baba community
Hmm.
because I had volunteered with them for a number of years and was asked to kind of coordinate the food for that. And so after the pandemic began and it became clear that, you know, people needed food as well as there was a big surge in unemployment at that time. And so I wanted to kind of start the meals up again. And the Sai Baba community wasn't available. They were kind of mostly folks from India and they were living in multi-generational homes. And so they had elders to consider. And so they weren't interested in doing anything at that point. They have since kind of developed other things. But then I just reached out to some folks who I had known from the Sai Baba community, and we started with the meal. And
Okay.
yeah,
And do you need any major donors? I mean, where does the food come from? Is it all reclaimed food?
Costco.
Costco reclaimed food.
No, Costco retail wholesale food.
Oh,
No, we're too small to do, and we don't have kind of at this point we don't have our own space in order to be able to store some of those things. And so
the
sometimes people,
reclaiming kind of stuff, you mean?
right, yeah. So places in town, and those are more focused towards larger like city programs that are having 3 meals a day, 6 days a week kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And also have the storage capacity and the semi truck can come and they can take pallets of things. So we have just always we do get donations from different places and try to work them in. I belong to a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture program, and last year we had they had donated a share for us, and so for 20 weeks we'd get a bag of something which we would incorporate into the meal, and that was great. And but right now it's just I go to Costco and
And so where does the
do a
money
big
come
shop. I've had the great fortune to have connected with several family foundations,
from?
as well as I do a Giving Tuesday and year end kind of fundraising drive, as do many nonprofits. And so between all of those, I make enough money to make it make it all work.
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary. I mean, it seems that the entire thing runs on connections.
Yeah, yeah, that's a lot of it. Is
Yeah,
that
connections to people, and somehow or other, you can
mhm,
bring them in, you can keep them informed, you can keep them involved.
yeah.
In terms of your volunteer group, do any other Buddhists volunteer?
Um, Not well. Once a semester, I give a talk at the Columbia University Buddhist Association.
Mhm.
Again, I'm one of many teachers that pass through in the course of a 12-week semester, however many it winds up being. And I've been doing that for a number of years. And they have coordinated a volunteer drive. And so one, we haven't done it for a while. That person who was very interested in doing that wound up graduating and leaving. So I'm working with the new coordinators of that. But we did have a group from Columbia, folks affiliated with that Buddhist association come.
I'll skip a little bit. We were going to talk about how to franchise this a little bit later, but
Okay.
it seems to me that with so many Buddhist communities as our members of the Buddhist Coalition for Democracy, that there's a lot of people trying to figure out what to do.
Mhm.
They could certainly come work with you, and they could certainly figure out how to replicate what you do somewhere else.
That is all true. Yeah.
which is really, I think, the greatest potential that we have in having a program, kind of a common forum, which is what the coalition has created.
Hmm.
So, ladies and gentlemen, attending the telecast, uh, Daiken Nelson Roshi is open for volunteers. And if any of you, actually, I'm going to be his rep. If any of you likes to write a book, think about it. There are Tassajara books, but there could be a Mandala Cafe, how to start your own, what do you call them? You don't call them soup kitchens. What do you call them?
Community meals.
Community meals.
Hmm.
This is I know I can't help it. I have a marketing background. And this makes it easy if you're in wherever you are, wherever city you are, you want to do something, you want it to be practiced. Replicating this model could really be very simple.
Yeah.
How would you do it? Let's say that you're going to say to somebody, okay, we're going to replicate this. How would you take them through the steps?
First, um, first it is to look for partners. So I did one program with a renewal synagogue here in New York. They had a building with a kitchen. And so for almost 3 years, we did a meal 2 Sundays a month. And so we were able to network and work together. They had the space. It was volunteer opportunities for their community as well as folks already connected with me who could
They
come
had a
in.
kitchen.
And they had a kitchen and they had the space, and so we did that.
Do these kitchens require permits?
No, not for a community meal.
Okay,
Um,
good.
larger programs that are doing, multiple meals per week
And a
do.
community meal is defined as what?
Um, the old term is soup kitchen. It's basically just people putting together some food and handing it
Okay,
out to anyone who does a soup kitchen, carries with it, kind of some cultural,
yes.
socioeconomic baggage. And one thing, kind of a tagline that I have added to all of this is feeding all our neighbors.
Okay.
So we do the meal. There's a decommissioned school that has become a hub for nonprofits, and in the basement is a typical um, elementary school cafeteria with all the big stainless steel stuff and the big room and the little tray, the little bars that you slide the tray on and all of that stuff. And so we connected with them as a place to do the kitchen work. And then we schlepped the food to a Baptist church that's in an old RKO movie house. So it has a lot of space. They have a big lobby, and they let us prep the meals and then hand them out on.
Give me a
Yes,
second. Can you move your microphone up a little bit?
Sure.
Candia, is that right? There you go.
yes, thank you.
Better? Okay.
Perfecto. Thank you.
Um,
We were schlepping the food.
to a Baptist church.
Yeah.
And so those are two places that we network with and that we work with. And they let us use the space, and we've been there for the Sai Baba group used to be at the same Baptist church, and then we moved down the street to an Episcopal church for 3 years. And then when I wanted to resume this, I went back to the Episcopal church. They weren't interested. I went back to the Baptist church. Took a long time, but eventually they said yes, and so we've been doing that. So, there are a lot of churches with a lot of kitchens and spaces, and so that's a possibility. And then there are a lot of different groups around. We have groups from like junior high school basketball team come. We have groups from different schools, different organizations. We have alumni groups. So it just
Volunteer?
to come volunteer, yeah. So it just
Okay.
it's connecting with all of these different groups that are already around,
Mhm.
and all sorts of opportunities for groups to work together. And
And do you exist? You must exist as a nonprofit, so you actually are a legal entity.
right.
Okay. So I imagine that if somebody, at what point do you recommend that you actually become something?
Well, it's possible to do this and not be anything. It's just a group of people coming together and making the food. And it's, like from like shopping to like starting my drive home, it's 7 hours.
Okay.
So, and we do that one day a week at this point. And so, um, and again, work can be handed out to folks. So somebody could go do the shopping and bring the food while somebody's setting up the kitchen and different things. So it wouldn't have to be one person necessarily doing
Okay.
that. And um, I've also been connected or am connected with different groups in different places that do community meals in church basements or schools or
Mhm.
things like that. And
Okay.
they just come together, do the meal, serve it, clean up, and leave in the course of a Saturday morning or something like that. So
Listen.
it's pretty
So
easy.
the legal entity, right, receives the donations,
Correct.
right? And
Hmm.
then use the donation to buy the food and any other expenses that you would need to.
Right.
And then the people who actually do the work, it's really a great deal of your community connections, different
Right.
groups that are looking to do something good.
Hmm.
And it would be quite outrageous, and I hope it happens wherever our audience is, that we let our friends in Buddhist groups know that this is a very easy thing to do.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it would be great if there could be a thousand points of light of mandala cafes. And ideally,
Or
too,
just start with 108, and that'll be enough.
108. Okay, this is what we're doing. We're going for 108. Our IPO will say that we're going for 108 mandala cafes. But okay, so one day people, yeah, and ideally it can become when you said that you have a component of mindfulness and life skills to your training. Uh,
Right.
how does that blend in?
Well, that's part of the kind of social engagement of the practice is we actually introduce meditation to folks. Kitchens are notoriously stressful and busy and loud and intense and all of that. So we want to give folks skills, both practical skills of working in the kitchen as well as life skills for to be able to deal with being in
Correct.
those kind of environments. And so we instruct people on how to begin a meditation practice. And we actually um, when we have the training, Wednesday is kind of our the way we've done it up to this point. Monday and Tuesday are practicum days in the kitchen. Wednesday is a day where we do the kind of other training type things, and then we cook the Wednesday meal. So the trainees are the ones in the kitchen actually cooking the meal, and each week they kind of move around. And this week they're doing the pasta, this week they're doing the salad, this week they're doing the vegetables or whatever. And so they move around and get to practice these skills that we've worked on earlier in the week. And
So
then
the
also
mandala,
some of the food that we prep and cook and teach people how to bake or how to do things that makes it into the meal on Wednesday.
fantastic. So your trainees are fundamentally doing the heavy lifting because that must be complicated to find cooks, right?
Yeah, that's kind of that has been our Achilles heel is to find folks who can do like a kitchen shift in the middle of the afternoon. Later in the evening, folks are heading home from work or school or whatever, so that's a little easier to fill. But then on Wednesdays, we start with meditation. I know somebody who teaches Tai Chi, and he comes in and leads people in things. We do gentle stretching and chair yoga things. At one point, the co-chef that I was working with, she's an herbalist, and she talked all about kind of how to deal, how to work with herbal remedies and things like that instead of, relying totally on caffeine or things like that, that there's other ways that are a little more gentle. And also we talk about diet and we talk about sleep and restoration and play and kind of things like that so that we try to help folks find a balance.
Hmm. And then the very last component, we have your training, you have your meals, and you also have your catering.
Right.
What function does the catering serve in this model?
Well, it's on the job training. So it's folks either who have gone through our training or are in our training. And or sometimes it's just other folks from the community who I know who are interested in doing this as a part-time job. So it's on the job training and some part-time employment for folks. And since we started, we've been able to find this nice niche of working with other nonprofits. So we've worked for the Columbia School of Social Work. We've worked for
Mm-hmm.
Union Theological Seminary, which is in our neighborhood, and justice programs, churches, and other spiritual organizations. And so it's been
Okay.
really nice because they know that we're doing something different. We know that we're not, that we're not one of the big grocery stores where they can just go and get, kind of
Yeah.
generic food.
Yet
And
again, it's all about this giant web
mhm,
what giant web of relationships
right. Yeah,
that, with a
Indra's
little
net.
bit of money flowing,
Hmm.
and then it just all happens. And listen,
Yeah.
I just had an idea for you. What you need to do is a calling all tenzos. Calling all tenzos. If you have extra time, why don't you, so you can have all kinds of cooks.
Yeah.
All these retired tenzos out there. Because, it's like we haven't connected it, You managed to connect all of this.
Hmm.
But I know that in my case, I've never really had to get real. So why don't we open it to questions? Because I'm sure there are
Um,
people out there.
just one follow-up thing
Yeah,
in talking about scaling it, you asked what is needed.
yeah.
And so just our meals run somewhere between 350 and $450 each week. So it's not a big amount. So a person needs a kitchen somewhere. When we resumed in 2020, we were cooking from my apartment, much to my girlfriend's chagrin at the time. But we did that for several months until I found a kitchen where we could work. And then we have 2 to 3 volunteers for the kitchen shift cooking. And then we have 4 to 10 for the prep and the distribution. And that's when, groups can come in and help out. And then the menus are very simple. The Sai Baba community always did vegetarian food, and so we continued to do that. There's a New York City kitchen and pantry up the block, and they're doing kind of traditional food service food of, kind of meat and potatoes and a vegetable and white bread kind of thing. So we're trying to offer some healthy alternatives, as well as there are folks who do come and are vegetarian or vegan, and so we can feed pretty much anybody with that food. And we also have people who walk by and say, "No meat," and then they wander off, and then they don't understand
What?
how we could serve a meal without meat.
Um, Somebody really has to capture this model. It's just way too good. I do hope, Roshi, that you just find one of your friends in your multiple relationships, someone who has a passion to capture your business model, to put it in those terms.
Hmm.
Because it's easily done.
Mhm.
And it's actually very, very effective, and I imagine very rewarding.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been volunteering. I started volunteering in 2016, and so I've known folks who come every week or every other week. I've known folks for, 9, almost 10 years.
Hmm.
And it's great to see them and we have a conversation and we know, a little bit about each other. And so they're, it's a different expression of community than, just people lining up and getting handed a meal and walking away. And so we're smaller, so that gives us some flexibility as well as a little more kind of intimacy than some of the
Splendid,
larger places.
splendid, splendid.
Okay.
So if you have a question or a comment, can you kindly raise, you know how to raise your, go to react and raise your hand?
And while people are coming in with their questions, I'd like to add that we did have in our chat that at www.usfoodbanks.org, that is a good place to get food. It's easy program suggestions. They bag up food and give it to people once a week. So that is coming from our chat.
Well,
Kat?
Thanks, Candia. Oh, Shoshan?
yeah, Shosan.
Shosan.
Yeah, I suggested that because it's absolutely non-technical. All you need is a grocery store to give you bags. You go to the food bank, you get a case of this, a case of that, and a case of that, and you put one per bag, and you hand it out to families. And before you know it, you're doing 100 or 200 of them. So I did that for a while. We've also done other things like bagging up when I was Tenzo at San Francisco Zen Center. I bagged up leftovers. I never served anything more than, twice. So the second time I would package it in to-go containers and hand it out at Civic Center. And so it's, you know, it's very, very easy. The thing about the food bagging is that with like 3 or 4 people, you can put 100 bags of food together in a very short amount of time. It only takes about a half hour. Each person just carries a case and goes plunk,
Oh,
plunk, plunk, plunk. And then it gives relief. I was thinking, like, what can be done during the SNAP crisis?
yes, yes, yes.
In California, um, Governor Newsom has put together a program to refund SNAP for people who lose it, but that's not the case in every state. Anyway, I really think Bernie is smiling down on you. Bernie is like totally delighted, and he's saying something like, "Let's be a little more chaotic and random. Everybody do different things, and then tell each other what you're doing." So he's saying stuff like that. Don't you think it's like just this whole idea of Pamsula, of stitching it together somehow, which you've done. You
Mhm.
took a whole lot of different organizations and stitched them together into a quilt
Yeah.
to warm
Mhm.
people's hearts. So that's really, all I just think if our practice doesn't do that, what's it for? So
Amen.
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you,
Kat?
Shosan.
Thank
Kat?
you. Thank you.
Hello, Roshi. So before I ask my question, let me give you a little background. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Um, so first I'd like to say that I am also from Yonkers. I moved out in 2000. I moved a little further upstate in New York. I'm also a graduate of the French Culinary Institute in New York City. Um, and I've been interested in doing something in my community as far as either teaching. I have done some teaching at we have a farm up here, and I did several charity teaching classes, which was great. but they don't really do that anymore. So I've been thinking too about what more can I do besides just donating food to the food pantry. So my question is this: if I'm understanding you correctly, I could theoretically prepare a bunch of meals, refrigerator, freeze them, transport them the 2 miles to my local food pantry, who also has refrigerators and freezers, and they could give them out with the Saturday when they open their pantry to people. Is that correct?
It varies on the pantry. Sometimes pantries are non-prepared meals. So you just get a bag of like vegetables or boxes of cans of this and that because they don't want to have to deal with refrigerating and kind of a whole other level of things. But where is it upstate where you live?
I'm in Yorktown Heights.
In Yorktown Heights. Yeah, there may be some program there. There may be like a community meal happening that you could contribute to. I know some friends up in Beacon who have a meal once a month, and they just all come together and do that. And so something like that. So you'd have to look around and see if there's anything in your area that that could take, trays of food and whatever you'd have to offer. That would be great.
Right. And also, if in the future, by the way, I'm also the social media person for the Buddhist Coalition for Democracy.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
I work closely with Seth.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever need an extra teacher, anything like that for your program, I would be honored to help you if I'm available.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Yay. Yay. This is it. The,
Mm.
w- the weaving is happening on its own. We will find each other. We will find each other. And I think, uh, next week, I think this conversation is going to seem very apropos because not every state is California. And there's going to be a lot of hungry people out there, and they're going to be mad.
Yeah.
I'd be mad too. I'd be afraid. So, anyhow, just maybe something one can do. So, if somebody wants to write that business model down, because it's actually very straightforward.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't know, maybe I'll write a business school case on this. This is too good to pass. Anyhow, anybody have any further comments, any ideas about how to make it happen? Nancy.
Well, this is kind of more a question about how you make it happen. In your training, the people you're training, are these the people who have been out of work, who've been kind of not able to work for one reason or another? Are they the people mostly in your program that you're training? And how do you get the word out to people that you have a meal? It's it's once a week on Wednesday. What is the PR? How do people know this is what you're doing?
The members of the trainings have been very varied. We've had, again, folks who want skills to be able to work in kitchens, as well as formerly incarcerated folks and people, as I outlined earlier, who have these, kind of quote unquote barriers for them just to walk into a place and get a job because gaps in their work history or other things that have made that difficult. And we've also had just, folks have just heard about it and they're interested and they just show up. So it's not just one kind of group of folks. There are there are a couple programs. There's a catering program here in New York City, a woman who herself is formerly incarcerated who only hires formerly incarcerated women. And that's fantastic. And there's this great film called Knife Skills about a program in Ohio that also works with the formerly incarcerated. So there's another group here in town called Emma's Torch, and it's a food training and also helps people develop like a food product that they want to do, but that's exclusively for immigrants. And so there are these groups that kind of work with these different populations, and we try to open it up to anyone who's interested and willing to participate for the 12, 13 weeks to do that. And in terms of PR, a lot of it is folks have just found us, and word of mouth, and people find us and then they invite a friend to come. A friend of mine once was asked for someone who had recently retired. They were looking for that's actually happened a couple times where folks had recently retired and they were looking for some sort of something to do, and so they've become regular volunteers with us. And then also we've connected and we have kind of ongoing relationships with different schools and organizations that wind up coming back once or twice a year and bringing students or alumni or something like that. And but yeah, I get maybe 2 emails a month from somebody saying, hey, can I come volunteer, as well as these other volunteer placement websites that connected with. You muted.
Nancy.
Nancy.
How do the people find out you're there serving this? The people who come to eat at the cafe, how do you get that word out? Or is that word of mouth also?
That's word of mouth, and we've been there for decades now. The Sai Baba community was at the same corner for 20 some years before the pandemic, and then we've been there for 5 years. And so a lot of it is, it's either repeat, it's foot traffic, whoever's walking, and some folks going, what's this? And then other folks know about us and are there every week that we're open. And then also the pantry and kitchen that I mentioned up the street, a lot of folks they close at 6 and we're there till we're done handing out the food. And so they'll run up there and grab food and then come back and get food from us so that they have meals for a couple days. And it's all fine. And as I said, we're feeding all of our neighbors. And so the area where we do the prep and the distribution of the meals, it's predominantly a West African group. They actually call it Little Senegal. And so there are the men and the women in the full kind of regional costumes, and and they ask us, as long as it doesn't have pork in it, they're very happy. It's halal, and I tell them it's not, kind of certified halal, but made with love, and they're very happy with that. And then also at one point there was a city shelter for the influx of immigrants, and that was mostly folks from Venezuela and from West Africa. So we actually did 3 meals there outside across the street, but then we told them about this meal and let them know about that so they would wind their way up. And then, sometimes it's just somebody walking home from work and it's just kind of like, do you want a meal? And it's like, sure. And that's fine too. So yeah, we have no inclusion criteria, because sometimes you have to sign up or you have to have an ID or you have to register with them, and it's like anybody who goes by and wants a meal, we give them one. So
Fantastic. Once again, it's that sense of connection. You just happen to walk by, or you did, or you come back. Everything is just what connects to what you're doing. Excellent.
Yeah.
Let's take one last question from Betsy. And pleased to meet you, by the way, Betsy.
It's nice to meet you too. So thank you very much for doing what you're doing. And I think my question, I'm sort of curious to know what the meals after people have gotten their food and they are sitting down and they're eating together. I'm sort of curious about that and how long people stick around. And are there anything on the table? Is there any, I'm assuming there's not candles, but like I'm just sort of trying to picture the actual meal, the ceremony
Right,
of that itself.
right. So a couple things. At present, we don't have our own cafe. We've connected with a couple churches, and the Episcopal Church, where we were for like 3.5 years, we were able to serve and feed people in the social hall. And so that was very much kind of this wonderful gathering of folks, and just sitting around tables and just with tablecloths and real silverware instead of plastic, and and folks, we offered a variety of different food there because it was a different kind of setting. Right now, we just have to-go meals.
I see.
Yeah, and many folks do have a place to live, and so they just take it home and eat there.
I see.
The ultimate goal of the cafe has always been to create a bricks and mortar cafe space. And there's a program, there's an organization called One World, Everyone Eats, which is now international and made up of about 60 different restaurants all around the country, and there's one in Britain now. And they are offering food on a pay-what-you-can model, or some kind of version of that. And there's nothing in New York. There's one place in New York that offers like one meal a week in that mode. But there's this organization, and we come together. There's an annual gathering, usually based with one of the cafes somewhere around the country, and we share information and ideas and plans and different things. But the plan has always been to create a place where we're feeding all of our neighbors. And so it's people off the street, it's unhoused folks, it's professional folks, anyone would come. There's a saying, if you wind up having more, instead of a taller wall, build a longer table.
Mm.
And so that's kind of our idea, is that we would create, it's kind of like a pan quotidien with the big, huge community tables. And so folks would be kind of forced, might be a strong word, but folks would be encouraged to sit together. And so, so that's kind of always been the ultimate goal. And that's just very difficult here in New York because of real estate and prices and different things. But someday, knock on wood.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, but thank you. That's a great question.
So before I thank profusely, like I will, I wanted to point to Don Paco, se me fue, ahí está, Francisco Paco Lugoviña. Do you see him here with his white t-shirt here? He will actually will do an interview with me on December 4th, Dia de Chango, because he's from Puerto Rico and I'm from Cuba, so this could get kind of wild. So he's going to be present, and I think that might be Mushim hiding behind that gong. Not really sure, but it looks like it. Aha, this is you. Ideally, you will come join us in sometime February or March. I can't recall, but I'll get in touch with you because I'd love to hear what you have to say too.
And Paco has the misfortune of having been my Zen teacher for a number of years. So,
Don Paco. Anyhow, and I think Seth's too. So,
Seth is my student, but
ah,
they know each other and have.
excellent. Yeah, that's who introduced
Yeah.
me. Seth introduced me to all his friends. This is what this program really is, Seth and friends. But he's got good friends. Um, I think that, this network, this sort of spider web of relationships that you're talking about, I think what flows through it is love. All these people are tied by a sense of love.
Mhm.
And it's amazing probably how the people that you serve begin to love too. And that is part of what is being fed, their soul.
Right.
I know, because they're being acknowledged. It's real people.
Mm.
So I have nothing but gratitude for everything that you do, and gratitude for granting me about 2 hours of your time. You're a busy man. Are a busy man.
Idle
Um,
hands.
so on behalf of all of us and the Buddhist Coalition for Democracy, I thank you enormously for coming to New Horizons in Engage Buddhism. And I think that your sourdough mother, whatever, is about to germinate, or whatever it is that the right language of sourdough bread is. You all get it. We're going to get to eat good bread, and thanks to you.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you
very
so much.
welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you all for showing up and participating. I appreciate that. And I put my email in the chat, so if anyone wants to reach out and ask a question if you didn't get a chance, or just any sort of conversation, I'm very open for that.
Great. Next one. The panel. There you go. Night, everybody.